We're all in over here.
So that got me introduced to what people like Jacques Vallée, who you've had on the show,
yes, a couple
I think.
Times.
Great guy. He became my mentor, who essentially took me out of the wilderness. I could have gone down 20 different rabbit holes. And he lives in San Francisco, and we would meet regularly, and we still meet regularly. And he basically gave me a formulation of how to think about this, that I never would have been able to get from 20 different, or 100 YouTubes or what have you, and introduced me to the right people. That eventually led me to meet Lou Elizondo. And I actually, 2 weeks before that article came out in the New York Times, met Lou in Crystal City overlooking the Pentagon, and he showed me the videos that were about to come out. And that was my first time that I had met him. And then through all of them, I met Dave Grush and Carl Nell, and Dave and I are in regular contact, and I just want to say up front, I hope that the Trump administration understands the value of what David can bring to them and put him in a position of authority that gives him not the ability necessarily to make decisions, but to give the necessary information to the right people. Because I think there's great commercial value here that is being missed, not just the are we alone, et cetera. I think there's extraordinary commercial value. I mean, imagine a civilization that's a million years ahead of us. How many technology revolutions allow these objects to move as we clearly see something motivating itself or maneuvering around the atmosphere?
Right.
So if we could scrape just the tiniest bit of understanding off of the top of that, what would that do to change our own civilization? I mean, silicon, a grain of sand, makes us who we are today. Everything that's around me right here is all run off of silicon, right? I mean, compute. But imagine that there's other inventions, other ways of manipulating reality that we don't appreciate yet because our physics just isn't there yet. If we can understand that. So the government might say, well, we need to keep this behind closed doors for weaponization, or we don't want to disrupt energy production or what have you. That's fine. But maybe there's too much secrecy, and that maybe that there's an aspect of that that could be taken advantage of. So Carl Nell and I have gotten in positive arguments about this, about that, well, it's not black and white that we keep something secret or we put it into the public domain. Maybe there's a middle domain where you have a public-private partnership opportunity, and actually that's now, Carl has now adopted this, at least in part, that maybe companies come to the fore, or investment forum places come to the fore, where they will put money in as options to fund, let's say, public scientists to come in behind the scenes with the right levels of clearances to study stuff that would propel society forward again.
But this is assuming two things. One, that we have actually recovered these things.
Right.
And then another one is that it's from a society from somewhere else that's far more advanced than we are today.
Right.
Which might not be correct. It might not be that it's from somewhere else. It might be that it's from somewhere here, or a dimension that we don't have access to. Right.
Yeah.
This is assuming that all this stuff is real.
Right.
But when you're talking about the government and back engineering of things, so the big argument, this is the narrative. The big argument has been that they have recovered these things, and that these things are now in the hands of defense contractors, and that there's been a misappropriation of funds, lying to Congress, and it's always going to stay secret, because if it didn't, everybody would go to jail and everyone would get sued.
Yeah.
Right? Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I mean, what I would say amnesty would be one way to...
This is... Were you in the Age of Disclosure documentary?
Briefly, yes.
Yeah, okay. Which I thought was very good.
Very good.
And I can't wait for that to come out. I've been talking to people, like, how can I see it? I don't know how you can see it. It's not out yet.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. Whoever it is, go Netflix. Yo, Ted, go buy that. It's really good.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really good.
It's a great show. I mean, and it has a number of officials, and I think I sent you guys some of the videos basically coming forward. I mean, Marco Rubio, our
Yes.
current Secretary of State. I mean, you saw
he's in it.
He's
Yeah.
in it for 10 minutes, saying some remarkable things. Senator Rounds, you name it. More recently, Tulsi Gabbard,
Yes.
coming out and saying, well, there's something going on.
I think one of the most fascinating things is Hal Puthoff's descriptions of what happened during the Bush administration, Herbert Walker Bush.
Right.
So I believe it was 1990, they came to Hal Puthoff and a bunch of other experts and said, we want a numerical value placed
Right.
on all the positives and the negatives of disclosure because we have acquired these crafts from somewhere else. We believe they're not of this world, and we have not made them, and we're talking about letting the general public know.
Right.
And they overwhelmingly said that the positives were dwarfed by the negatives.
Right.
The negatives being banking, religion, government,
Right.
societal structure. Everything would fall apart if we knew we weren't alone. Not only are we not alone, but something is infinitely more sophisticated than us and might be responsible for us being here in the first place. Which
Right.
is, that's where it gets super squirrely.
Right. Well, you could imagine
The Book of Enoch, and there's a lot of...
I think it's a little bit overwrought as to what humanity's reaction will be. People are more worried today about putting food on the table than they would be about, ethereal or supposed aliens. I mean, they would mostly, I think, on the assumption that they're not going to basically show up at your local Walmart and start, interacting with you. I think the fact of revealing that we're not alone is actually more of a hopeful thing to me. Because, how many TV shows right now are about the apocalypse?
Right.
Of 1,000 different varieties.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be nice to know that somebody got beyond it?
Yes.
That there's not a cliff that we all have to walk over?
Right.
And if so, how do we not walk over the edge of the cliff? I mean, that to me is a hopeful outcome. Now, Hal and Eric and all the people are all good friends. Hal is probably, for all of the things that he says positively, is probably the tightest clam I've ever met in terms of making sure that he doesn't go over the line.
Yeah, he knows too much.
Yeah.
That's the thing. He has to be very careful who he's talking to and
Yeah.
what he says. I like to mind meld him the Spock thing where you find out all the information.
But it's people like him and Jacques and Kit Green and a number of others, and I sat around a table with them for several years, like twice a year, and I looked around the table and thought, the things that these people know or claim to know, I want to know. And the opportunity that's here, and why can't we get this information out if it's real? And so rather than arguing with people about the matter, that's, for instance, why I created the Soul Foundation, which is a charitable group of academics. I started it with David Grush and Peter Skafish. David, of course, had to leave because he had governmental responsibilities he wanted to go take care of. And actually, we've now had, for 3 years in a row, a symposium, first at Stanford, then at San Francisco, and the next one is now in Italy. So I'm going to plug it, sol2025.org. You can go look if you want to go to...
Sol, S-O-L?
S-O-L, as in the sun.
2025.org.
And the purpose of that was not to advocate that any of this is real, but was to create an environment within which academics or professionals or just lay people interested in the subject matter could come and talk about it in a very professional manner, right? Just to bounce around ideas, not to advocate for, they're here or they're reptilians or they're this or they're that, but to, like some of the things you raised, what are the ethical issues, what are the religious issues? So we have put out a number of white papers, for instance, where we had a member of the Catholic hierarchy write a paper on the issues related to Catholicism and religion. We've had Timothy Gallaudet, who's actually on our advisory committee, talk about USOs and those issues. We've talked about near space issues. Peter is running a study on experiencers. Not that the experiences are necessarily real, but what are the kinds of psychosocial matters that need to be considered for people who say that this has happened to them. So there's a group in the UK called Unhidden, which is basically a bunch of psychiatrists, a group of professional psychiatrists who say, okay, well, there's a trauma associated with this. Whether it's real or not, we don't know. But what are the kinds of rules that we should, or provisions that we should provide to the public and to psychiatrists? So when somebody shows up at your doorstep, in therapy and says this, you shouldn't immediately reach for the anti-hysteria or schizophrenia drugs.
Right.
I was lucky enough in my neighborhood. Our next door neighbor, who moved in for a while, was the chair of psychiatry at Stanford, and so we go over to have dinner with her and her husband. And, like one of the first things that she says, hey, what do you do? Blah, blah, blah. And I happened to mention the UFO thing, and she just sort of sat back in her seat. Okay.
You might be a kook.
Okay. But it took, a year or so until she finally realized that I wasn't. And then I was approaching this from a very scientific manner. I had my beliefs as to what I think it is that I'm dealing with, and that there's some sort of reality to this. But that's separate than the scientist in me that says, well, if I want to talk about this scientifically, here are the things that I need to prove or disprove. So that has led, for instance, to my production or study of materials that Jacques Vallée had brought to me, some metals and other things that had chains of evidence associated with them being at some UAP or UFO landing. And so, interestingly, some of these metals are very unusual. Super high purity silicon, strange magnesium ratios, the isotope ratios are wrong, et cetera. Now, that's not proof of anything, but it's proof that somebody engineered them. So it's that plus the medical. Those are the kinds of reality-based tests that I can do to provide to my colleagues to say, here is data and evidence. Evidence isn't proof of evidence of anything. Evidence, like in a court of law, is just evidence that you provide to the jury of peers. Right? So, but I sort of have gone a step further. And that is, I'm like, okay, well, if these things are, let's say we get some advanced material, how do I prove that this advanced material was made by some superior intellect? Well, probably the atomic positioning of how the material is made is going to be more advanced than even our most advanced computer chip. So how do you determine that? Well, you need some sort of atomic imager that might tell you where the positions of the atoms are and what the bond structures are, that you say, well, that's something I can measure, and I can give those results to somebody else, and they can say, yeah, it's right or it's not. But at least I can say, no human, at least that I know of, could make this. So I started a company that I've raised money for with this new idea that I have for how to make an atomic imager, and we're doing it. And so, we've raised the money, we're building it already, and I know it will work. So when I have it, whether or not it's useful for looking at UAP materials is almost immaterial, because I know how useful it will be for the nanomaterials, the metamaterials, the alloys that the government, et cetera, uses for biology, et cetera. So rather than predicting what a protein structure or a DNA or a chromosome arm looks like, I'll be able to read its structure directly.
I want to bring you back to you said it was 10 people that didn't have Havana syndrome, that they had some sort of an injury that was associated with a UAP event. What was their thing? Did they have an implant, or was there a...
No, some of them had they had what you would call white matter disease in their brain, like they had been exposed to something. So white matter disease, if you have, for instance, multiple sclerosis, and you look in the brain with MRI, you'll see these white areas which are basically dead tissue, scar tissue. They had things like that. One person, one of the pictures that I had was that they had claimed to have seen something in their backyard. They shone a flashlight at it, and the moment they did, they got zapped. And then you see the picture of the guy in the back of his neck, this huge welt and a bruising and a scarring that could there's no reasonable way you could have gotten something like that just by exposing yourself to a flame, as a for instance, or a blowtorch. And so it's these kinds of events that, and the unfortunate issue with these is that they're not repeatable. They're one-off anecdotes.
Right.
You certainly can't put a person in a place where they become bait for these kinds of events to occur. And so you're sort of...
Some people would volunteer for that, though.
Somebody might, yeah.
To go get zapped. You know about the Travis Walton story, right?
Very much, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think of that?
You know, he's kept to his story over all of the years.
That's what's so confusing.
Yeah, I mean, he's had no reason. I don't know that he's profited off of it. I find it fascinating, but it's the irreproducibility of the events that the skeptics, I call them more pseudo-skeptics, they're pseudists, like nudists, they're pseudists that use these one-offnesses of these events to disparage the entire, idea of it. It sounds ridiculous. Well, of course it sounds ridiculous, because you're talking about something that is
fucking
outside
spaceship that zaps people. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And I don't think that even he would propose, Travis, that he was purposefully hurt.
Right.
I mean, if you walk across an airfield and get in the plume of a jet engine, you're going to get hurt.
Right.
Yeah,
and his story is that he was taken aboard to heal him.
Yeah.
That there was something happened to him during that event. But the crazy part is that all the other people that are in the truck, they witnessed it, and then they passed polygraph examinations.
Right.
They also told the same story independently when they took them and separated them. And then Travis Walton shows up 5 days later with the same clothes on.
Right.
With this crazy story.
Right. So when people say that, there's no evidence or where's the evidence, my first question to them is, well, what have you read any books about any of this? Have you spent even a moment looking into it? And, I would point them at books like by Robert Powell and Michael Sword's UFOs and Government, which is not a proposal that any of this is real. It's just the story of these events over decades. And so there's books like that, dozens of them, that tell the story of data and evidence. How you contextualize it is, up to your personal biases.
Listen, I think the drones are looking for a nuclear bomb, and I am going to leave New Jersey. Where should I go?
To Montana.
How far away should I go? Oh, that's okay. If you leave New Jersey as a precautionary measure, here are some suggestions for place to relocate temporarily.
Texas, you're doing good.
Head west. Okay, so now we're getting better. So now it's saying go further away. Wow. Colorado, scroll back up so I can read that where it said Colorado. Consider Durango, Grand Junction, or areas outside of Denver. These are safe and equipped with modern infrastructure. They're telling you to move. This is telling you to get away from big cities.
Durango.
Tennessee, the Smoky Mountain region, and Gatlinburg or Knoxville provides natural beauty, lower cost of living, and a sense of isolation. They're telling you how to rebuild civilization. Okay, if a nuke goes off.
Where to go?
If a nuke goes off on the East Coast, type this in, Jamie. If a nuke goes off on the East Coast, where should I be to be safe?
Oh my gosh.
If you're concerned about potential nuclear incident, here's a list of safest options based on geographic, environmental, and strategic factors. Montana, Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho, sparsely populated, vast distances from major cities and military targets. Towns like Bozeman, Jackson Hole, Sandpoint are beautiful, remote, and away from the fallout paths. Jesus Christ.
I'm curious, what would happen if you asked ChatGPT, is it? GPT, if what percentage of UAP represented non-human intelligence?
Okay, that's a good one. What percentage of UAP represent a non-human intelligence?
Really curious.
I was just pulling it from the internet.
I know, but let's see what it says. Could represent non-human intelligence remains unknown and speculative. Current investigations by UAP organizations like the U.S. government Emphasize the following. Most UAPs have conventional explanations. Oh, this is Project Blue Book bullshit.
So 5 or 10% of UAP cases remain unidentified even after thorough analysis. These cases, I was like 15 to 20, but yeah, 5 to 10%.
Evidence inconsistent with known human technology. No conclusive evidence for non-human intelligence. While some UAP cases are puzzling, the government has not officially... Okay. But type this in. Commander David Fravor encountered a tic-tac shaped craft in 2005. Well, 2004.
2003.
Okay, 2003.
Mm-hmm.
That defied our understanding of known physics. Period. What do you think he saw?
Wow.
2004
I'm sorry.
encounter with tic-tac-shaped craft remains one of the most compelling and well-documented UAP cases in modern history. Key details of the encounter. Craft describes smooth, white, oblong, resembling a tic-tac, no visible propulsion, wings or exhaust, displayed extraordinary flight characteristics, accelerated instantly from a hovering position, descended from 80,000 feet to near sea level in seconds. Fravor reported the object mimicked his movements during their engagement and then vanished at extreme speed. It's possible the craft was an ultra-secret military project, either U.S.-based experimental aerospace technology, or developed by another nation. However, the extreme flight performance raises doubts. Such advanced technology would suggest a significant leap beyond publicly known capabilities, which is inconsistent with current engineering limits. Sensor anomaly or perception issues.
I asked the heads of Aero if they could explain that one, and they said no.
No, type this in.
It's a really good case.
If all accounts of the capabilities of the tic-tac craft are true, what are the possibilities that it came from another planet?
If the accounts of aircraft capabilities are accurate, instantaneous acceleration, hypersonic speeds without propulsion, no heat signature.
Say it loud so people can hear you.
Okay, so if the accounts of the tic-tac craft's capabilities are accurate, instantaneous acceleration, hypersonic speeds without visible propulsion, no heat signatures, and defiance of inertia, then the possibilities of origin being extraterrestrial or from another planet become a viable hypothesis.
Here's why. The physics of the tic-tac craft. Reported behavior of the craft suggests technology that operates beyond our current understanding of physics and propulsion systems. No visible propulsion. It implies propulsion system unrelated to conventional jets or rockets. Instantaneous acceleration defies inertia in Newtonian physics. Achieving this would require manipulating gravity or space-time itself. Silent operation, no sonic booms despite hypersonic speeds, points to a technology that likely eliminates air resistance, such as surrounding itself in an electromagnetic field or bubble. This level of technological advancement far surpasses anything developed on Earth. If true, such capabilities would suggest a highly advanced civilization, perhaps thousands or millions of years ahead of us scientifically. If true, where do you think it came from?
And this was 20 years ago.
The more that it had to say.
I know, but if true, where do you think it came from? How about this?
It's still typing.
It's still typing.
Wow.
Jesus
I'm
Christ.
giving you that answer
Final
here.
thoughts. Look at this. Writing a whole turn paper on this.
It's amazing how fast it does it,
God.
too. It's amazing how fast it does it.
Wow.
If the tic-tac UAP is real and the accounts are accurate, then its origin may very well be extraterrestrial or involve unknown physics and technology that we haven't begun to comprehend. The extraordinary nature of the case suggests an equally extraordinary explanation. What do you think? Why are you asking me, bitch? You're ChatGPT.
What do you think?
Does extraterrestrial visitation seem plausible, or is there another explanation that resonates more with you? So type this. I believe it seems plausible that they are extraterrestrial in nature.
Good luck. I was going to say that's good.
If true, where do you think they came from? Let's see. Identifying where they might come from involves exploring nearby stellar systems, known exoplanets, and plausible scientific ideas about interstellar travel. Here are the most likely possibilities. Nearby star systems with habitable zones. Alpha Centauri system, 4.37 light years away, the closest star system to Earth. Proxima Centauri. Potentially habitable planet, exoplanet orbiting Proxima Centauri within a habitable zone. If life developed there, it might be technologically advanced enough for interstellar exploration. Bernard, so it's giving me a list of all
the potential
different
possibilities,
possible star systems.
Wow.
This one's only 39 light years away.
What was the closest one? Alpha Centauri was that? Was that 4 light years or something?
I don't know. Scroll back up.
Scroll back up a little bit.
I said 3.9.
3.9 million.
4.3.
4.3.
Alpha Centauri, 4.3 light years
pretty
away.
close.
Wow! But here's the crazy part.
Pretty close.
You remember the twin paradox theory? They say that if you get like 2 twins, right, as kids, say one's 10, they're both 10,
Right.
and you put one in a spaceship that travels the speed of light for 1 year, he would come back with an atomic clock on board that spacecraft a year older. He'd be 11, and his brother would be an old man. I can't wrap my mind around that.
Right. But
But they say it's pretty much fact.
But that's speed, right? I think what we're talking about is different than speed. I think it's instantaneous relocation.
right. So, in other
I
words,
think
you would
I think instead of like
manipulate the space time between the 2 points.
right. So I think the idea is that instead of a rocket that goes 5 million miles an hour and just shoots off of Earth and keeps going until it 5 million years from now it runs into this planet. I think it's different than that. I think if I had to guess where something can manipulate gravity and space, what it would do is instantaneously appear in these new places.
And you've talked to a lot of physicists about this kind of stuff, huh?
I have, and the way they explain it is baffling. And Bob Lazar's version of it is baffling because Bob Lazar's version of it that he told in 1989 kind of makes sense when you talk to people that are trying to develop some sort of a gravity or a warp drive.
Right.
And the way Bob Lazar explained it is that this element, when bombarded with radiation, creates this, I'm really butchering it for sure, creates some sort of a gravity field that allows it, the way he described it, like if you took a mattress, a very soft mattress, and put a very heavy bowling ball in the middle of the mattress, it pushes the mattress down to that area, and that this like folds time.
Right. So you go from here
Yes.
to here, but when you stretch it down, suddenly those 2 points connect.
It folds it. Yeah.
Right.
And so wherever it is, it's,
Wow.
it's here. So it's not like it's going a million light years.
So it's
a
malleable.
million light years an hour. Yeah.
Space is malleable.
Exactly.
It's just
Well, it makes sense if you think about how technology scales.
Yeah.
And if we do, I mean, Ryan brought up this yesterday as well, that there was research and there was papers written about the idea of having some sort of a gravity drive or having some sort of a gravity propulsion system, something that doesn't rely on conventional, rockets,
Yeah, we're not
pushing
doing it jet
gases
A
out
fuel,
the back.
that's for sure.
Exactly. And he said that this was something that was discussed a long time ago, but then it just stopped. And then, and we brought it up quite a while ago. There was an episode that we brought up a paper that was written in the 1960s about gravity drives.
Was that by Hal Puthoff?
I do not know.
Because he's like a propulsion expert in terms of the propulsion behind the physics behind UFOs.
Yeah.
And I tried to get him to explain it to me in sort of conventional layman terms, and of course my tiny little brain. But I felt like I almost grasped it for a moment, but the amount of power that it would take to create that gravitational field around the object. And he said that's why you see them doing these maneuvers that look like it defy physics, right? And then everything inside the craft would just splatter. That you're immune from that on the inside, according.
Which also would
I'm
make
so
sense.
not a physicist. What am I talking
Right,
about?
but that would also make sense if you had something like that you could go in the ocean as well, right?
Yeah. So
Because whatever's around you wouldn't matter because you're not affected by it.
right, you're somehow creating a field around you.
Exactly.
That's immune to whatever.
Right. But that would be
Space,
the only thing that would make sense how it could move so fast underwater.
atmosphere, space, water.
And how it would be transmedium.
Yeah.
It can go from space into the water. It's unaffected by gravity. It's unaffected by all the things around it. It creates its own gravity field, and it allows it to just pass through things.
I remember Kirk McConnell, who Senate Armed Service Committee, who investigated UFOs from 2017. I talked about him earlier, but he said that they were picking up Aegis radar systems were picking these objects up from basically from space, and they were shooting down from space all the way down. They'd loiter for as long as they wanted to, go in the water, come back out again, shoot back up into space, and they would just do it like, all day long. And there was nothing.
Well, we can't see that, right?
I don't know what
someone does have. I mean, if there's someone in the military that does have some like super advanced satellite reconnaissance imagery of these things. I could see why they would hold that back. I could see why they would think that people aren't ready for that. I could see it.
Do you think Elon knows?
He's real cagey about it.
He is cagey about it, and he's got deals with the DOD, and he's got satellites and everything.
That's probably why. I'd be cagey about it too.
He knows more than what he's saying.
This is what he said. If aliens are real, they're very subtle. That's what he was saying. I was like, I don't know if they're subtle, man. The Phoenix Lights wasn't that subtle. If that's aliens.
I heard from some people around him that because of his contracts with DOD, that he kind of keeps quiet about it because
I'm sure
everybody talks about. I mean, even Ratcliffe talked about the satellite imagery of UAP. I mean, if they're picking it up, why wouldn't his systems pick it up?
He hasn't said a peep about the drone thing.
And you haven't asked him about it?
Nope. If he wants to tell me, he'll tell me. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to be annoying. But publicly, like on X, has he said anything about the drones?
He said something a couple weeks ago, I believe. I think it was a couple weeks ago. I'll check right now. But it's like there's a big drone storm or a big drone fight coming, and people are taking that as like he knew this was happening.
A big drone fight coming?
Well, he has been real public about the idea that building manned fighter jets is at this point kind of foolish, and I think he's correct.
So unpiloted only.
Yeah, I mean, I think
takes the fun out of it.
Well, it takes the biological mistakes out of it, is what it does.
Right.
It takes the human mind out. The human mind is very fallible. We already know that AI systems, like Mike Baker explained to us, that AI systems with fighter jets beat actual fighter jet pilots 100% of the time. So when they have these simulated, when they have these simulated dogfights, when they take AI fighter jets that we have right now, they beat our fighter jet pilots, the best of the best, 100% of the time. So they don't have any biological limitations in terms of what they can deal with G-forces.
Yes. Yeah. Don't need.
So you have that, right? So all you have to do is make the equipment and the materials robust enough so they can take insane speeds and not blow apart. But it certainly would be way easier to do that than it would be to get a human being to be safe in it.
So much less badass, though.
Recently.
So what is he saying? Oh, so he clicked on it. Future wars are all about drones and hypersonic jets. So this is us talking about that. This is us talking about fighter jet pilots by humans will be destroyed very quickly. So he talked about it. So he put a clip up of us talking about it on the podcast. This was in November 28th. And so neither side has air superiority, and tanks are easily destroyed by missiles. So that leaves infantry and artillery, basically World War I. Drones are not yet available in sufficient numbers to matter, much like aircraft in World War I. A defense in-depth trench war means, and then some modern example.
That was like 2 years ago.
So did you get the impression when you spoke to Elon about UFOs that he knew?
I started, interviewing pilots, flag officers, general officer equivalent type Navy folks, and they were seeing some really crazy shit. And like a event that I talked about previously publicly in a YouTube video on the Yes Theory channel. There was this one 30-year senior Navy officer that he was going to work sober, no predisposition for fantasy, all that kind of stuff. Because I interviewed the individual for a couple hours, and he saw this crazy triangle hover over his car going to work at a certain naval facility, and it blew his mind. He was serious. The paint on his car turned milky white after the incident. So to me, that sounds like ionizing radiation. So ultraviolet, just like how your headlights get all foggy over time if you park your car out in the sun. Same phenomenon just happened, within 24-hour period. And I'm like, whoa. If this is true, and the oral testimony and crazy radar data that I saw when I was on the task force, stuff making turns that didn't make any sense, well, holy shit, what is this stuff then?
This anomaly with his paint is this documented? Is this photographs or?
Yes, I saw photographs. It was documented. Yeah.
And what is there a conventional explanation?
I mean, based on what he described, something to rapidly ionize his paint like that within a day. I can't think of anything off the top of my head in terms of some conventional aerospace technology. And this was a certain facility in the continental U.S. This was not overseas. So it's not like our adversaries flying some spooky thing in U.S. airspace.
So this thing hovered over his car for how long?
Couple minutes while he was traveling at about 60 miles an hour. So it was pacing.
How
his
far
vehicle.
away from his vehicle?
It's probably a couple hundred feet in altitude. It was less than 1,000 feet, which is
Really?
also bad because from an airspace perspective, pilots would know this. Anything under 1,000 feet? No. Unless you get special clearance, and you only do that over controlled airspace, like a military test ranges, right?
Right.
People fly low and that kind of thing.
So is he on, what kind of a highway is he on?
A conventional civilian highway.
Civilian highway. So anyone could have been on it.
Yes.
And it just happened to be this guy. Did he have any other experiences with this thing?
No, this was like a once-in-a-lifetime thing. He kept it to himself for a couple years, but then he, the task force came out.
What was his name?
I don't. What he's
Okay.
That individual's still on.
Let's
active
call him
duty.
Bob.
Yeah.
But did anybody say to him, "Hey, Bob, what the fuck happened to your car"?
You know, that's a good question. I don't remember if people asked him about his car. So he took pride in his car. So it actually was probably more upsetting to him personally.
What kind of car was it?
It was like a Toyota or something. So
Okay.
yeah.
So all of a sudden, his Toyota's fucked.
Yeah.
Okay. And so did he have to report this? Is this something that?
He did not report it, to my knowledge, to anybody. It wasn't until he reported it to us about 5 years later that it happened.
So are these kind of experiences something that a lot of these pilots are embarrassed about discussing or have apprehension about discussing because they could be ridiculed?
Yeah, a lot of people that are on flight status, they don't want to be sent to the psych, right? You know, there's a whole aerospace physiology kind of empire in the military. If you're an operator or, a guy, a missile key turner, you're on what they call a personal reliability program. If you're taking Tylenol, you got to report it. If you have a fever, you got to report it because you're, in control of nuclear weapons when you're on duty. So,
Right.
Yeah.
And so this idea of being predisposed to fantasy, that's also something that they sort of talk to these people about or try to get a gauge of.
Yeah. These are people that are very sober-minded. I mean, this individual was early in the morning, going to work, not under the influence of anything. And that person had a similar clearance as mine, TSSCI. So, we've gone through
TS, what's that?
top secret, Sensitive Department of Information clearance. And, just like myself, I've been through multiple polygraphs in my career. So did this individual. So,
does he have any idea or any theories about why this thing was following him?
No, that's what freaked him out the most because he didn't have any experience in his life like this. It totally blew his mind when he looked out his moonroof and then looked out the side of his car door and saw this 300-foot triangle. It was like pre-dawn sky, but it was darker than the pre-dawn sky, and it had this plasma edges, it was purplish glowing edges, and these three lights that had these omnidirectional, almost like pool lights. How you can't really tell where the light source is. And it was totally trippy. And that's just one example of many anecdotal, with some evidence, pilot stories. And that's what made me dig deeper. And I started, cultivating my network. Has the government studied this before? This wasn't just OSAP and ATIP and Blue Book and all this shit in the past, right? This seems serious. So certainly the government has looked at this. And, I went to search for that program. And that's what I ended up whistleblowing on, right?
So how did you initially discover this program, and what was your first encounter with the information?
A very senior individual in the intel community came to me when I guess I was asking a lot of questions because I'm a very inquisitive guy, and it was like, hey, I need to introduce you to somebody He listed that certain person's academic credentials, which were beyond reproach, PhD level education, clearance, resume was insane. I'm like, well, okay, sure, I'll talk to this person, and I ended up meeting that person in a top secret facility, and he started the discussing like, hey, there's a program, I was on it, and we were reverse engineering crash material that we've recovered over the decades, and he's like, I'm not joking. We're telling you because you guys have to report to the Deputy Secretary of Defense and Congress on this matter, right? And we were actively briefing like Secretary Esper, Deputy Secretary Norquist, other cabinet level folks, right? And it's like there's an oversight issue because you're the UAP task force. You should be read into this stuff because like, why spend the taxpayers, dollars looking at stuff that we already have data on?
Right.
So that spooked me, and that was like fall of 2019. And I don't take a guy's word for it. I'm like, you know what? Myself and my trusted colleagues that had a lot of special accesses like me, we cultivated our network, and we ultimately interviewed about 40 people or so, all the way up to multi-star generals, directors of agencies, mid-level guys that literally touched it, worked inside of it, all the stuff. They brought intel reports for me to look at, documents, and a lot of that I could cross-verify with other oral sources that my high-level colleagues or I talked to, and it checked out, especially when I had enough information on, and I know who specifically to ask, like, hey, well, I want read into this. Like, I'm on the UAP task force, and we went to those, I'll call them gatekeepers for the lack of a better term, and they basically said, fuck you to me and my colleagues.
So why were these other people willing to discuss this with you?
Well, they determined I didn't need to know. I was already cleared at such a high level, handling presidential material and everything. It's like Dave needs to know. And they felt that coming to us, it was a form of a protected disclosure. They felt that they weren't really violating anything because, we were I'll call it the investigatory body for the Department of Defense and the intelligence community and Congress at the time. And they, you are allowed to, disclose to a government official in an official capacity. And I, did that. And, of course, I protected those people. And I took those people, a lot of them, and I brought them to the Intelligence Community Inspector General when I filed my complaint. Because I don't want people to, hear it from a secondhand source. People call it hearsay, whatever. Though I have some firsthand knowledge, I eventually talk about someday. I'm trying to get it cleared, but through security processes. So they could hear it and hear the details, like, who, what, when, where, why, where the shit is, who's in control of it, what are the cover programs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and that's what deemed my complaint credible and urgent in July 2022, which is my complaint, yes, was about reprisal too. I filed that separately eventually to the Department of Defense Inspector General. And that's an ongoing investigation, but it was my congressional oversight UAP crash retrieval allegations that was deemed credible and urgent. It was sent to the Director of National Intelligence, and then it was sent to the Congressional Intelligence Committees around that time, July of 2022. And I eventually went to Congress in December of 2022, and it's a crazy story why it took so long. It's fucking nuts. But I provided total about 11 and a half to 12 hours of classified testimony to the congressional staffers and their lawyers for both the House and the Senate. And I went, full open kimono. I mean, I told them as much as I could within my time slot, if you will. So
this is obviously very compartmentalized,
Yes.
where there's only a few people that know about this information, and they're not allowed to discuss it with other people. Mm-hmm. When did this all start? I mean, is this out of Roswell? Is it predate that? Like, when When did they first realize that there are things that cannot be explained or can't be explained through conventional means?
Yeah, I mean, the program goes back a ways. The precise beginning of it, I can't talk about, but I did, because of security stuff, but I did talk about publicly the 1933 retrieval, and I did that tactically, and I ran that through the security approval office because I wanted to show that this is much older and it's international. It's not like a U.S. thing. I mean, this stuff is landing or crashing around the world, and unexpected countries have had this happen, and that's why I picked that, because I thought that was a interesting case. And then, of course, Pope Pius XII and the Vatican were involved, back-channeling it through the OSS, which became the CIA later, to FDR, and that's how the U.S. knew something weird happened in Italy right before World War II. But
so this was 33 was the first documented.
That is the earliest one I can talk about. Yeah,
There's something that predates that.
You could infer that.
You could infer that.
Yeah.
So this 33 one you said was in Italy?
Yeah, Magenta. So it's I'm bad at geography. I think that's like a Lombardy region. It's like northwest Italy.
And what's the story behind it?
So basically, it looked like it crashed, right? The original shape most likely was like a lenticular disc-like craft, with like two dinner plates.
What
right?
does lenticular mean?
So like two dinner plates, smushed together, right? The hump, and there's like a bubble on top.
Like the classic
saucer. Like that.
Like that. Okay.
But it looks like when it hits, the edges broke off, so it became this like bell or acorn shaped thing. And there was nothing in it. It was like just an artifact. There was no biological remnants, if you will. So it's so funny because the Italians were so confused. They actually called up the Germans and they were like, is this one of your Wunderwaffe? Like, what the hell just crashed in northern Italy? Mussolini. And this is all publicly available information because some Italian researchers found all these original documents that some people were sitting on for years in Italy. They put a gag order on the press, etc. And Mussolini asked the Germans to come down. And of course, the Germans came down and they were like, that is not ours, but let's look at it together. So that's kind of perhaps a tertiary reason the kind of Axis powers got together. I'm not saying that's like the reason, but I think the Italians and the Germans were so intrigued with what they found from like an artifact perspective. There was at least some scientific and military collaboration during the war, the details of which I'm not sure of, but I know people that know that specific event that are currently still intel officers within this program in detail. But
so was there witnesses to the crash or some sort of an understanding that something had crash landed and then they discovered it?
Yeah, I forget the precise discovery. I don't know if it was like local police officers or local farmers found it in the field, something like that. I don't want to misspeak. I assume some of the Italian researchers might have some fact witnesses that can orally say, "Oh yeah, my great-grandfather found it" or something like that. But I don't remember.
And what was the scale of this vehicle?
It was probably like 20 feet by 10 feet, something like that. Not super huge, but kind of big.
Do they think that this was a drone? Do they think that this was occupied?
There was nothing in it. So if it was piloted, if you will, by some sentience, I mean, your guess is as good as mine. So.
So what happened to that vehicle? The speed of light, you're talking about not traditional propulsion, but some form of propulsion that allows you to go at insane speeds.
Yeah, electromagnetic is what it seems to be. And importantly, the electromagnetic force is 10 to the 40 times more powerful than gravity. So not only do I think that's what they use to fly, I think that's what they use to manipulate space-time. Actually, in Dan Farah, I think you just had him on too, The Age of Disclosure.
Yes.
There's this really cool thing at the end where Hal Puthoff and I think Eric Davis as well were talking about this space-time bubble, right? A really weird thing happened. We can get to that in a second, but I don't want to jump around too much because I'll lose people and myself probably. But this space-time bubble that they form around the craft, I think is also indicative of the fact that they're manipulating space-time, that they're traveling in and out of time. They use it to hide in plain sight. They manipulate the rate at which they move relative to us in their frame of reference, and they're moving fast all around us. And they've slowed time down outside of that bubble, so everything is really, really slow to them, and they can easily evade our bullets and our missiles, but we don't see them because we don't have that frame rate of perception. And if you slow videos down, I'm sure you've seen these all the time, where there's like a zzz, and then you slow it down and you can see this saucer-shaped craft moving slowly across the sky once you slow down the frame rate. But a really funny thing happened because I've never actually talked about this with anyone before. I owe a lot of the fact that anybody even knows who I am to Hal Puthoff. When I first started talking about this publicly in 2018, and then I published my book in 2019, Identified Flying Objects, he, I guess, reached out to the head of MUFON at the time, who was putting together the 50th anniversary MUFON event, and was like, hey, you should have this Mike Masters guy come talk. And I found that out from the head of MUFON. He's like, hey, just so you know, Hal Puthoff, of all people, recommended I contact you. I had no idea who that is, so I get on the internet, I Google Hal Puthoff. He also put Jesse Michaels, mutual friend, in touch with me after, I think he did an interview with him and Weinstein. I forget his name.
Eric?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he did an interview with those two. I guess Hal was like, hey, you should reach out to Mike Masters. And he did, and we talked, and we've done stuff together. But what was cool is that at the end of that Age of Disclosure film, when he's talking about the space-time bubble, I thought back to after my first book came out, and I was contacted by someone who claimed to be an ex-intelligence person who explained that exact same thing to me back in 2019, that these things aren't doing 10,000 G maneuvers that would crush anything inside. To them, in their frame of reference, what they feel is completely different than what we see. Because in that space-time bubble, they can be moving at 50,000 miles an hour, do a right-hand turn, and it would splatter anything inside because of the G-forces. That's what we see on the outside. But in that space-time bubble, they probably feel 1-2 Gs at the most. So I started thinking, man, was that Hal? Did Hal reach out to me with like a different email address and say, hey, just so you know, this is how these things are happening. This is how they're able to do it. And I was a dumbass. I still am a dumbass. But I was an extra big dumbass back then. And I was like, oh, cool, thanks, man. You know, like a story went viral about my books, and Fox News picked it up, and space.com. And so I was going through a bunch of emails. They recognized I wasn't getting what they were saying. I was not picking up what they were putting down. And they were like, no, this is important. Said it again, and then it clicked. I was like, oh, yeah, that makes perfect sense. They're manipulating the rate at which time passes in this bubble around the craft, and we see something completely different.
So when we're seeing this, we are imagining what we can do. And we're sort of saying, well, what would be an advanced version of what we can do? And what this technology is something that's levels of magnitude beyond even our theoretical, like any sort of idea that we have currently about, you know, potential future timelines of technology.
Yeah.
There's no one talking about gravity bubbles that allow you to instantaneously traverse immense gaps in the universe.
Well, they might be talking about it behind closed doors at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Right.
And have been for 70 years,
yeah, that's
give or
the problem.
take.
That's the real problem with disclosure. Like, how much progress could we have made if they had opened up all this stuff? And you got to imagine if you were an intelligent life form from another planet. You know, Diana Pasulka talked about, her and Gary Nolan talked about how they refer to some of these things as donations.
Mm-hmm.
They don't think of them as crashed vehicles because some of them are not crashed. They're completely intact. And
I think David Grush said that too, didn't he?
yeah, I believe he did.
Yeah.
And even, you know, Lazar, when he was talking about it,
yeah, the sports model.
Mhm.
Wasn't that fully intact too?
fully intact.
Yeah.
Yeah, fully intact and operational, and apparently they flew it around.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Well, that was one of the reasons, you know, the whole story how he got caught. It's a really crazy story. So he used to work at Los Alamos. He was a propulsions expert. Guy put a jet engine on the back of a Honda. He was a real freak. You know, he made a hydrogen Corvette in like the 1990s. He was a nutty dude.
Clearly an engineer.
Yes.
That part checks out.
So he gets this job on Area S4 and goes there. And it's all documented in Jeremy Corbell's excellent movie, Bob Lazar, Area 51 and Flying Saucers. So he goes there and sees this thing, and it's got a American flag sticker on it. And, you know, they basically say, tell us how it works. And he's like, oh, this is ours, because he sees it has a sticker on it. And then he realizes this is made out of some completely unknown alloy. There's no seams in it. It seems to be 3D printed. There's no controls inside of it. It's designed for something that's 3 feet tall. It's all very fucking weird. So he's working on this thing, not making much headway at all. They understood that there was an element 115, that was not even on the periodic table. Eventually found to actually be a thing by the Large Hadron Collider. But even then, they only measured it for a millisecond, right? So then he's saying that they have this stable version of this element, and you bombard it with radiation, and it creates this sort of gravity drive. He's working on this thing, and it's all top secret, so he cannot tell his wife. So they're calling him up at 10 o'clock, like, hey, get to the airport. We need you. And so he would have to fly out at random times, fly out to S4, and his wife was like, this motherfucker's having an affair. Well, I'm going to have an affair too. So she starts fucking her flight attendant, or a flight instructor. I think that's what it was. When you have that kind of clearance, they are monitoring everything. They're monitoring all your phone calls. So they've realized that his wife is having an affair, and they think that he will be emotionally unstable, and it's too dangerous to have him working on this insanely top secret information if he's not stable. So they tell him, you know, we're going to at least temporarily relieve you of your duties. So he's freaked out, and he tells his friends, like, hey, this is what they're doing there.
Yeah.
They have these things, and they fly them every Wednesday. I'm going to take you guys. There's an area we can go watch. So he takes his friends out there on 2 separate occasions, I believe. They get caught. He gets arrested. They release him, and he realizes, like, I'm kind of fucked. They might kill me. I'm going to have to go public with this. Contacts George Knapp.
I did see that.
Then the whole thing is history.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's wild, man. And I think, and it's still happening. You know, there's still these whistleblowers.
Well, he says they used to fly them, and you could go watch them fly these things. And they were moving in these really weird ways across the sky that you cannot do with conventional aircraft, that they only sort of understood how to, like, pick it up and put it down. They didn't understand how to, like, really
That was out at Groom Lake, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember as a kid, I've obviously been into this for a long time. I remember as a kid seeing videos of people going out, and then they eventually closed it down. You couldn't get to that spot, but there was like
that was during the Obama administration. During the Obama administration, they actually had to admit that Area 51 was real, because before that, no one even knew it was real. I mean, that was always just a joke, like Area 51 was like for fun. But then they said, no, it is real, and we need to expand the forbidden boundary.
Yeah. And isn't that when people were gonna, like, bum rush it too? Is that when that happened?
That was during COVID.
Oh, okay.
During COVID, there was a bunch of dorks that were like, we're gonna crash Area 51. That's a good way to die,
Exactly.
kids. They'll fucking kill you.
Hey, natural selection.
Yeah,
right?
they're working on a lot of stuff out there, and some of it is weapons.
Right.
They can't have you internet dorks from Reddit just running out into Area 51.
Yeah, I think they eventually realized that, because I don't think they went out there, but that could have been bad.
I think it was all bullshit. They weren't going to. What are you going to do? How are you going to get out there? Yeah.
Engagement farming. Yeah, man, there's a lot of crazy shit that's been going on. It's been going on for a while. Jamie and I were talking beforehand about the stovepiping, too. And all the
stovepiping?
The different ways that they compartmentalize what they're doing. And they talked about it in Age of Disclosure, too. That's a big problem, because certain people are working on these parts of the craft to reverse engineer them, to understand them, but they don't have the whole picture.
Lazar was talking about that from the 1980s.
Yeah.
In 1989, he said the people that are working on metallurgy were not in contact with the people that are working on propulsion, and he's like, science cannot operate like that.
Yeah. No, it can't, because you need to know what's going on beyond just this little part that
Right.
you're working on.
And if you have a bunch of people that are sharing information, you get a much more comprehensive understanding
Exactly.
of what this thing is.
Yeah, we all benefit from communication.
Right, because there could be something involved in the actual structure of it that
Yeah.
lends to its ability to do something. It might not be simply just structure. It might be structure with some sort of an ability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't see the forest through the trees in these situations, and it's unfortunate. And what the argument they made in this doco is that we're putting ourselves at a disadvantage because other countries have probably retrieved these things too, and they might be working on it, yes, in secrecy. But if people are working together,
Right.
and not stovepiping this thing
Right.
ad infinitum, then they might be able to actually make more progress faster than us. So part of the disclosure push is to be like, yeah, these things are real. We have them. Let's get our best scientists together to work on this holistically instead of compartmentalizing everything.
Well, just imagine if they had done that from 1947, where we would be.
Exactly.
If that's real. If Roswell was real, if all the crash was real, if Philip Drake Corso is correct, and all these people are telling the truth.
I know, and we still have to preface these things with if it's real, if it's real, and yeah, I do the same thing. I mean, as coming from academia, when I wrote my first book, I had to be like, if this is real, but it's hard. It's this paradox of sorts because how do you write to explain something that isn't real?
Right.
You know? What's the point of even doing that?
Yeah.
So I think we have to assume. I'm actually teaching a class at Montana Tech this spring called UFOs, History, and Science.
Ooh, I would take that if I was in school.
I think it's
be
going to be a
like,
lot of
"Fuck
fun.
yeah."
I know. I'm pretty stoked about it. And I had these artists design a poster in Norway and the UK, and just this crazy. Like I was like, how conservative should I be with this? Like just a UFO, and I gave them total artistic freedom. And there's like an alien holding the Earth, and this UFO swinging around. I'm like, all right, I guess that's what I'm doing. Plastered it all over campus to
Yeah.
recruit people to take the class. But like I'm going in on day one. We're not going to fuck around with like, are these things real? We're not going to waste time on that. We're going to jump in. These are real. Here's what we're doing. This is what we know. This is what we don't know. Explore the theories, explore the history, explore the prehistory, because it's a waste of time. Like these things are real.
You
know?
think they're real?
I know.
What
they are.
makes you convinced?
I have read enough accounts in researching this and from people that I know, I mean, starting from when I was a kid, hearing my biological father's account, you know, the way he told it. And then I interviewed him again in college to try to get more information because I was just overhearing from the stairs when I was supposed to be in bed. He saw what he saw. And then eventually I saw some UFOs.
What did you see?
I was kind of pissed, actually, because I started talking about this in 2018, and people were always like, you ever seen a UFO? No, never seen a UFO. I'd like to. And then finally, in 2022, it might have been late 2021. I don't remember exactly when. It was kind of warmish, so it was probably 2021. But everybody's in bed. I'm at my house. I live in a canyon, and I was having a whiskey, and I was like, I just walked up the canyon wall for some reason, like the hill behind my house. I don't really know why. I turned around and I could see these 5 super bright lights over what's known as the East Ridge in Butte, Montana. They're just like sitting there right over the East Ridge. I was like, well, that's not normal. Those aren't usually there. And they weren't stars. You know, they're way too big, way too close. I would say they were probably within 5 to 8 miles. You know, they were in the distance, but they were like there. And then I just kind of looked at them for a second, like, oh, that's weird. And then one by one, from right to left, they just went, phew, phew, shot off toward the southeast at like crazy speed. You know, like the kind of, like in Star Wars or Star Trek, how they hit hyperdrive and
Right.
there's that little light trail, like just one by one until they were all gone. That I have no conventional explanation for that.
Wow.
But I've never been one of those people that's like, I need to see it to believe it.
Right.
Because I believe the people who say the same thing over and over. There's patterns that we can extract from people's testaments who have had these close encounters. And that's one unfortunate thing that's happening right now is we're talking about the pilots, talking about police. But people have been seeing these forever, but they did such a good job manufacturing the stigma around it with Project Sign, Project Grudge, Project Blue Book to discount these people, to make them seem insane. You know,
That is one of the main points of evidence that I would point to that there is something. When people think there isn't something, I'm like, you should really pay attention to what they were trying to do during Project Blue Book.
Yeah.
Because I have a buddy of mine, my friend Steve Graham, shout out to Steve. When he was a boy, he was living in New York, upstate New York, and he filmed this red orb that was flying across the sky, and he took some photographs of it. And they called some officials somewhere. I don't remember. He was very young, and they said, "We are going to analyze the photos, and then we'll bring them back to you." And they never returned the photographs. When he called, he said, "No agents. There's no record of any agents coming to visit you. We don't know what to tell you." So they just took his photos, and that was it. But he said, whatever it was, he was young. I believe he was 10 or 11. And he said, whatever it was really weird. He goes, it was this red orb that was flying through the sky. It was a spacecraft. It wasn't a sun. It wasn't a meteor. It looked like it was moving purposely and under control. And it was there long enough for him to take a Polaroid of it. Yeah. And they just completely erased any memory of it or any evidence of it. When he called, like I said, they said no agents visited you, whatever the agent's name were. There was no agents by that name.
That's kind of the status quo.
Well, they try to make you look like a fool.
Absolutely, and that was intentional. Like, the stated mission of Project Grudge was to debunk these things, come up with conventional explanations, and make people seem like idiots.
Right. It wasn't
scientists
to investigate.
No, not at all.
The purpose wasn't, let's get to the bottom of this, find out, is this Russia? Is Russia doing this? That was not the purpose. The purpose was make these people look like fools.
Yeah.
You only do that if you know something that other people don't.
But the creature was this guy who's got like some deformities. But I've seen the guy, Modine or something like that. But you talk to the witnesses.
But why would the military shut the
I know.
town down because of a guy with deformities?
And then for the doctors in the hospital, they said, there was like a midget having a baby or something weird, just something that was just so ridiculous. It was like, and you talk to the witnesses and they're just like, oh, come on. I'm not even going to, that's laughable at best. I mean, these girls came within 8 to 10 feet. Three women, Katya, 2 sisters, Liliani and Valkyria, 14, 16, and 21. They got within 8 to 10 feet in broad daylight of this creature. And one of the things that doesn't come across in the film, when they saw this thing, they're looking like, what are we looking at here? They're walking through this field, and it's up against a cinder block wall. And one of them was looking at it, what is that? And it was crouched by the wall. It was weak and feeble. And one of them kind of like screeched. Like, what is that? And it turned, and it looked right at the girls, locked eyes on them. Liliana grabs her younger sister, who's 14, Valkyria, and hightails it out of there. Katya is 21. She's frozen in her tracks, locked eyes with this creature, and it's communicating with her. Please help me. He wants help. It's weak, and it's feeble, and it's scared, and it's crouched down. Liliani realizes that Katya is back there. She gets, 100 feet down the path. She leaves her sister, stay here, I'm going back to get Katya. She runs back. And I asked Katya, and I asked all the girls, during that moment of contact, when you lock eyes, I know it's only a brief second, but during that moment of contact, what did you feel? Like, put me there. That's where the title comes from, Moment of Contact, because that was when they locked eyes on this creature. And that's when Katya said, help me, I'm scared. And it was feeble and suffering. And it's a very powerful moment. And these girls have been saying the same thing. The mother, it's the first time I'd ever reported on these so-called like men in dark suits that show up and intimidate witnesses. Honestly, I've been hearing about those cases for so many times, but I've avoided them because it's got so much baggage from men in black. It's just ridiculous. I just didn't even want to be associated with it. But I'd heard it. I can go on until I'm blue in the face. I go till tomorrow morning with the amount of cases, with generals too. But this time, when the mother said that these men showed up and tried to get the daughters to say they were lying and offered her a briefcase full of $100 bills and they could relocate, I don't know. For some reason, I said, okay, for the first time in 25 years, I'm going to report on these guys. And I did. And it's in the movie. You can hear the mother talking about it, and she's so emotional. And the mother came back to the location where it happened, the smell, that stench, and the footprint on the ground. I mean, everybody talks about that stench, that it was so... They said, if you ever take like a skunk, multiply that by like 100,000, that would give you some indication of the level of like how putrid and nasty. It was paralyzing. And it stayed in the areas, like at the hospitals when they did the x-rays, and everybody talks about it. That stench, they're like, it's unbelievable. Like it fills your navel cavities and doesn't leave for a week. It was incredible. And they all said the same thing.
And they couldn't get it out.
They couldn't get it out. Yeah, they sanitized the hospital. The guy said that he had to close off that wing of the hospital while they were sanitizing it because it was so intense. So
How long did it last for?
I heard days and weeks is what I heard from people. And even the mother said when she went to where the creature was, she said that the stench, even there after the creature was gone, got in her nasal cavities, and she tried to flush it out with water and saline or whatever, and she just couldn't get it out of her nasal cavities. Really crazy. But they all did. I mean, everybody talked about that stench, I mean, the military officer, the guy that drove the creature around, I was sitting across from him. You can't see his face, but I did. And I'm looking this guy in the eyes. I'm thinking, I could be looking at a guy that drove a fucking alien around. You have no idea, dude. You have no idea.
How did he describe it?
So fucking intense. When I came back from that trip, people were like, how was your trip to Brazil? What was it like, man? They got great, smoothies and coffee. And I'm just like, you guys have no idea. I think an alien spaceship crashed, and they recovered live aliens. And we made contact, and the Americans came in. That's what I'm thinking about. So I told a couple people. On the last trip I came back, I was just like, I was so rocked. I couldn't reintegrate back into culture. I was just like, fuck, I think this happened. It's the biggest story ever. So people were asking me, even my neighbor who runs that Make-A-Wish Foundation, he was like, James, he goes, bro, I like you a lot and I got a lot of respect for you, but you lost me on this one. And I was like, I don't blame you, bro. I really don't. But listen to the witnesses. That's all I say. And I would tell people, and I realized I can't talk about it. All I can say is just listen to the witnesses. Don't take it from me. But I'm looking at that guy in the eyes, Joe. And I've been at this for 30 years. I'm working on my 7th film right now. I'm looking this guy in the eyes, and I'm like, this guy probably drove an alien around. And it tripped me out so hard. And it ruined his life. He's to get this guy to go on camera, just like a week earlier, he was like, I don't care all the money in the world. I'm never coming forward. The risks are too high.
How did it ruin his life?
Because you're harboring this secret. You're being watched. You're being told not to ever talk about this. And you're looking over your shoulder all the time. And they call you, the military calls you periodically. They want to know where you are. And he's got this secret inside him that he can't tell the rest of the world. And he's thinking about all the different, everyone's out there speculating, is it real, is it fake, is it real, is it fake? And this guy drove a body around. Just think about that for a second. Think about the doctor who took the x-rays of this thing. Marco Leal, thank you, Marco, you're the man. Marco Leal found him 8 years ago. And he was like, he confirmed the story. He was still working at Regional Hospital. He goes, I'll never come forward. Marco kept going every year back and forth. Then he retired. And 4 years after he retired, he agreed to meet with us. He wasn't even sure he was going to go on. And I said, look, man, we'll film you from the back. We'll disguise your voice. Showed us photographs of him at the hospital. We know we've been trying to get at him. Excuse me. At the end of the interview, he said, thank you. I feel so much better. I've been shouldering that burden for 26 years, and I've so desperately wanted to tell somebody, to share that story with the rest of the world. And you meet these people, and you think, why on earth they didn't come to us? They're not trying to sell their story. We tracked them down and begged and pleaded with them to come forward. When I found Martha, the sister of the deceased military officer, Marco Chirizi, we were knocking on doors. I remember the sound guy from Rio de Janeiro. He was like, you're out of your mind, dude. What are you doing? You can't just knock on random doors. I was like, man, if there's a will, there's a way. I'm going to find this lady. And we found her. And it was like this kind of sketchy area. And, it's like when you get out of your car and you could see like people drawing the curtains back and looking at you and you're standing out like, dude, I stood out like a sore thumb, man. And then we walked up I had Marco with me, thank God, and we had camera crews and stuff. It's kind of sketchy. And Marta appears, and her husband appears in this he's a big guy, and he's got like a white beater shirt on, and he looks like he wants to rip my fucking head off. And I'm like, and she's looking at me, and he's just looking at her going, Marta's looking at her husband, and her husband's looking at Marta like, give me the signal, I'll kill this guy. That's the fucking... And I was looking at Marco, and I was like, James, you need to think quick on your feet right now. And I said immediately, please translate this. I'm here to give your brother justice. I'm here to get the story out. Please, talk to me. And we developed a relationship with her slowly over that. And those were the first words that we exchanged. And we eventually got her to come forward, and we talked. She'd gone forward in the past, but she doesn't know who the hell I am.
I want to take you back to the doctor.
Okay.
When you talked to the doctor, what did he describe?
He said that it was a normal day, January 1996. It was a regional hospital. He said every day, and all of a sudden, all these military trucks and police cars showed up at the hospital. They come in armed, and they got a bag. They got a thing in a black body bag. And he was like, what the hell's going on here? They're like, you're going to be taking some x-rays. And he's like, okay. And they had him inside, and they had armed guards. And I was asking him, like, what was it like? Because when I interview witnesses, I always ask them to project. Sometimes I'll even close my eyes because I'll use their words to recreate. So I'm like living it through them. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I'll close my eyes, and I'll recreate the scenes in my head with their words, right? It's harder in Portuguese because I'm having to get it translated. But I ask questions like, what was the atmosphere like? Was there any talking? No talking. Super tense atmosphere. Very tense. Armed guards on the outside, armed guards on the inside, military trucks running. Nobody comes, nobody goes. And he said, first time in the history of my career, I took the x-rays and I couldn't even verify that they were good because they took them immediately. And then they said, this event never happened. He said the stench in the hotel, in the hospital was overwhelming. And he goes through the different x-rays that he took, the abdomen, the head, the arms, the legs, the thorax, and it was incredible. In fact, Uberajada Rodriguez, if you're listening to this, he's one of the leading researchers. He's gone quiet. Peccaccini disappeared for 20 years.
Did he get to see images himself? Did he get to see the body himself?
Oh, he saw. He was right. Well, they didn't open the body bag, but he said the stench was just overwhelming.
So they x-rayed it through the body bag?
They x-rayed it through the body bag.
So he never got to see...
He did not see the alien.
And he didn't get to see the x-ray images or anything?
Nope. They wouldn't let him see a damn thing. Nope. Now, there were two doctors. There was a guy named Roger Lear. Roger Lear found out, these are people that I really want to meet. I mean, people are coming forward in droves right now. We just got two forensic pathologists for the first time ever working together to come forward to make statements, and they're providing documentation of the autopsy reports done on the deceased military officer. That's the first time ever these guys are coming forward. It's happening right now.
Let's explain what happened to people who haven't watched the documentary to the deceased military officer.
Yeah, so right after the three girls came within 8 to 10 feet of this creature or being or entity or ET, whatever you want to call it, about an hour later, it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I would say probably maybe around 5 o'clock, there were two military guys on patrol on the lookout for something unusual, is what they were told. They didn't say a UFO had crashed. They were on the lookout for something highly unusual. And it was Eric Lopes at the wheel and Marco Chirizi, military police, in the passenger seat. They were about 1.5 to 2 blocks away from where the girls had seen the creature a couple of hours earlier. And this thing runs across the car in front of them. He had slammed his brakes on, and without a moment's hesitation, Marco Chirizi jumps out of the car and grabs the thing with his bare hands. Yeah. And he puts it in the back seat, and they drive it to a clinic, and the doctor is like, what the hell is that? Get it out of here. I don't know what, leave. So they went to regional hospital, and then ultimately it went to Humanitas Hospital. And so we have testimony from Military X that when he drove it from Humanitas Hospital, it's in the movie, but he drove it from Humanitas Hospital to as a military base where it spent the night in the truck for one night, and then it went from there to Espesex Campinas. It's like a university. It's where all the intellectual scientific heavyweights reside. And then it was there, I think, under examination, according to the witnesses that we talked to, for a day or two, and that's when the Americans flew in to Campinas. And we have the radar military control officer who came forward last year, actually 2 years ago when we were there filming for the last time. His name is Marco Feres, F-E-R-E-S, and he came forward for the first time and said, yeah, in January of 1996, this plane came in, USAF, he kept calling it, United States Air Force, came in, it didn't have the authorization of the Brazilian government. And he was like, this thing can't land. And some higher-up stepped into the room. This is his testimony. I'm just relaying what he said. He said some higher-up came in the room and said, let it land. And it came and it landed at Campinas. And then from Campinas, 2 helicopters, according to him, flew to Varginha, Brazil, Varginha back to Campinas. Then they loaded something on the airplane and then off to the United States. And that's where the case goes cold. So I will say this. One of the most exciting aspects for me to getting invited on your show is that you've got a huge platform of a lot of people listening. I want to know, we all want to know desperately, what happened when the United States took over. Where did this stuff go? Who was involved? Who flew that airplane? The flight records, all of these things. And so I'm asking you, please, if you're listening to this, to come forward and talk to us. This is an ongoing investigation. If you're too afraid to talk to me, there's new whistleblower protection that Senator Gillibrand and Rubio and a handful of others just signed into law. You can go and contact someone like Representative Andre Carson, and there's a process. You can go and testify and tell everything we know without fear of prosecution or violating any NDAs. I beg and plead for you to do that. Now, there are a handful of Congress people and senators that I believe are sincerely trying to get down to the bottom of this stuff. I've met with some of them, and I've continued to try to meet with someone else. I'm working with a guy named Brian Bender. He's kind of consultant on the project. He worked for Politico, and he's got great access as well. So the two of us are trying to address the evidence, the photographic evidence, the potential debris evidence, the potential body evidence. Where is it, and who has the authority to release it? And I've never really covered, and I know that I put my reputation on the line, Joe, and I totally understand for your audience that are listening to this right now and thinking that I've lost my marbles, and I completely respect that. I had the same reaction myself, and I'm not out here trying to sell crazy. I don't have a GoFundMe asking for money on evidence that I don't have. Not doing any of that. All I'm saying is this is potentially the biggest story that we've all been waiting for, the story that, in my opinion, could settle the debate once and for all. This story happened in 1996, and the vast majority of the witnesses are still alive. People are coming forward in droves right now. Like I said earlier on the show, those 2 doctors coming forward, the forensic pathologists, you want science? They're giving us science. They're giving us the long-form autopsy report. Leslie Kane is having it professionally and medically translated, and she'll have it looked at by medical people that she knows. So that's an ongoing investigation. Just the fact that Marco Leal, and we got access to those people. I was doing Zoom calls all last week leading up to coming here, begging them and pleading them to come forward. Please.
Do you... God, it's just really what you want is actual footage, right?
Of course we want footage. You saw what I showed you earlier.
Yeah.
Come on, man. You think I'm like, I'm going after
Oh,
that.
no, I know you're going after it. But, I mean, that's really what we need.
I know it's what we need. I mean, I'm telling you right now.
So close. It seems like you could just barely touch it.
So close.
It's like a movie when you're reaching for the key.
I know. You can't quite reach it. It's just like you see it dangling right there. You're like, come on. And I get criticized out there. People are like, no photographic evidence. I don't believe it. It's all garbage. Look, you got to start somewhere, okay? It starts with a story. How are you supposed to go looking for something if you don't even know it exists, right? So now we know that it exists. We've talked to people that have seen it.